going on this date, and I'm gonna let this gentleman give me the business.
Why are you telling me this?
Because I know it bothers you.
This is How I Met Your Dad, not to be confused with the 2022 television series How I Met Your Father. Nearly a decade before Hulu launched Hilary Duff's spin-off, Fox had tried breathing life into a completely different spin-off that never made it past the pilot episode. The failure wasn't only due to How I Met Your Mother's poorly received finale, but rather due to the fact that How I Met Your Dad falls for the same trap that so many sitcom spin-offs fall for time and time again.
Same thing, same time, same
What are either of you? What's happening inside of the room?
In 2014, the only sitcoms that were really hitting their stride were Modern Family and the remarkably consistent New Girl. Shows like Parks and Rec and How I Met Your Mother were preparing for their respective series finales. During these moments, networks have big shoes and even bigger advertising coffers to fill, which brings us to a moment in the entertainment industry known as pilot season. When it comes to greenlighting a sitcom, television studios can be relatively risk-averse. The simpler it is to explain your concept, the easier it is for studio executives to understand where it might fit into their content rotation. How I Met Your Mother was one of the most successful sitcoms on CBS's rotation. Creating a spin-off series likely seemed like a simple pathway to maintain a similar revenue stream. Hey, remember all that money we made with How I Met Your Mother? Let's do the same thing again.
Sweet, sweet $5, you're finally mine.
How I Met Your Dad should have been a slam dunk. The writing team of Craig Thomas and Carter Bays were returning from How I Met Your Mother, and they also brought on SNL alum Emily Spivey to help pen the script. The show features an attractive, charismatic cast and touches on some progressive themes. Writer and indie film darling Greta Gerwig was cast to play the show's central protagonist, Sally, with Meg Ryan providing the vocal talent for her older future self.
I've dusted off this typewriter to tell you the story of How I Met Your Dad.
Workaholics Anders Holm plays her ex-husband Gavin, and the show would have introduced us to an at-the-time unknown Drew Tarver and Andrew Santino. On paper, this feels like that right show, right time recipe that networks search tirelessly for with little to no avail. However, just because something looks good doesn't mean it's going to taste good.
You're gonna love it. Take a sip.
A Chardonnay. Todd, you're a professional chef.
The pilot episode of How I Met Your Dad is messy, to say the least. It feels completely rushed and comes off as if someone filmed an unedited rough draft of a screenplay rather than a fully conceptualized television show. While there are definitely a few charming moments peppered in throughout the episode's 22-minute runtime, the jokes feel largely flat, and the emotional core of the story is almost non-existent. The first 5 minutes of the show are like someone trying incredibly hard to get someone to like them despite their glaring red flags present the moment they walk into a room. If we compare this completely over-the-top scene to the first time we see McLaren's Pub in How I Met Your Mother, we can see a stark contrast in how these locations are set up. McLaren's is introduced to us during a humorous and heartfelt conversation between Barney Stinson and Ted Mosby.
Ted, I'm gonna teach you how to live. Barney, we met at the urinal.
Oh, right.
This conversation sets up these characters in a grounded way, and the scene relies on the emotions and relationships to drive the comedy. The opening scene of How I Met Your Dad doesn't achieve any of this. It fails to tell us who these characters are to each other, why we should care about these characters, and most importantly, it fails to create characters that feel like real human beings. There is nothing endearing about disrupting a bar with a bullhorn for no reason other than having found a bullhorn. On top of that, what 20-something can afford to buy a bar that has reached maximum occupancy a round of shots? The writers spend almost zero time introducing us to this new cast or telling us why we should care, and instead jump straight into these zany antics that haven't been earned in any way, shape, or form. Take, for instance, this ringtone bit at the top of the show.
This is my favorite song. It's set to ringtone called xylophone.
This is clearly inserted as one of the catchphrase bits that became so popular with How I Met Your Mother.
Audience, say it with me. Legendary.
These bits and catchphrases almost always serve to deepen the pre-existing character traits present in who we are observing on screen. The issue How I Met Your Dad runs into is that it seems to use these tropes to define their characters without doing any of the necessary developmental labor to actually make them feel real. Greta Gerwig's character didn't resonate with test audiences. In an interview with Stephen Colbert, she revealed that during one test screening, the audience was given a knob to turn to the right when they liked something and the left when they didn't like something.
Apparently, they turned the knob to the left every time I came on.
Oh, no.
Rather than set up the series with Sally dealing with the insurmountable hardship that is ending a marriage to get us to care for and connect with her, the pilot essentially centers around her going out and finding a random guy to sleep with. That's not what most human beings would actually do, so as this episode continues down this unrelatable rabbit hole, we actively become further separated from our protagonist. It's hard to connect with a character when they are constantly making objectively terrible decisions.
We're supposed to sleep together tonight.
Oh, God.
What do you mean, oh God?
At the end of the day, it seems like these veteran writers who created an absolute sitcom juggernaut phoned in this pilot. As time goes on, the writers get further and further away from taking that necessary first step, which is building a lasting foundation for the show to structure itself around. The best example of how it feels to watch the pilot of How I Met Your Dad comes at the end of the episode, where this new crew of characters all barge into Sally's apartment, shouting different reasons for Sally to care about something.
Marriage is beautiful. You'll always have someone to go to brunch with. Check into your bathroom sinks. You're not going to die alone. Sharing a life.
You don't have to share towels.
It's a cacophony of catchphrases and shtick, telling us to care about something when we aren't even sure what it is yet. This is exactly what it feels like the showrunners would be doing in our living rooms if this show made it to air. On top of all that, the pilot ends by telling us exactly who the dad on How I Met Your Dad is. This effectively eliminates the primary writing convention and mystery that made How I Met Your Mother successful in the first place. CBS also took issue with the pilot, perhaps for the same reasons we've outlined today. However, they saw potential in the IP and wanted to retool the concept. Bays and Thomas would only reshoot if they got a series order commitment. When that never happened, the project fizzled. Tweets from 2013 show that the creators wanted this spin-off to stand completely separate from the original run. This is not the case for the new Hulu endeavor, with cameos, Easter eggs, and locations crossing over. Was this familiar ingredient what finally got the show out of production limbo?
That's a pretty weird challenge.
If there's one thing you should know about me, it's that I love a weird challenge.
Characters don't need shtick. They need depth. They need to feel relatable, to feel real. For those things to happen, they need to behave in ways that normal human beings behave. You can't have jokes without substance. You can't create comedy without relatability. If we can't connect ourselves to a character on an emotional level, we can never go along for the ride later on. And that's it for this one, folks. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. You might see a couple of links floating in the player window on your screen. Feel free to click any of those if you haven't done so already. And hey, thanks for watching Nerdstalgic.